So I want you to picture a hidden candlelit stone tower somewhere in 15th century Europe. Like, really picture it.
Right, very moody.
Exactly.
Hmm.
And there's this cloaked alchemist who is frantically mixing sulfur and mercury, trying to brew a literal elixir of life. But then I want you to fast forward to today.
To a completely different scene.
Yeah, picture a sterile, brightly lit, multi-billion-dollar Silicon Valley biotech lab. You've got scientists in these pristine white coats, and they are engineering cellular therapies to double the human lifespan.
On the surface, those two images look like complete opposites. I mean, one is ancient magic and the other is cutting-edge science.
But that's the thing. When you look closely at the underlying mechanics, they are actually working from the exact same instruction manual. Welcome to today's deep dive, everyone.
We are diving into a massive stack of research today.
We really are. We're pulling from hard scientific literature and American Scientist and PubMed Central, all the way to actual clinical patents filed by modern longevity biotech companies.
And to tie all of this together, we're bringing in a really comprehensive theory laid out by a creator named Will Am.
Right. Will Am essentially maps these ancient esoteric alchemical rituals directly onto our modern biological hardware.
Which is fascinating. Our mission for you today is to decode how taking your physical body to the extreme edges of metabolic stress might literally be the biological elixir of life that those ancient alchemists were searching for.
Okay, so to really grasp the ancient metaphor, we first have to look at the modern biological blueprint, right? Like, what are modern billionaires funding right now?
Yeah, a prime example from the patent literature is a biotech firm called Immortal Bio. They are engineering a clinical pathway aimed at literally doubling the human lifespan.
Wow. And they're already running protocols on mice, aren't they?
They are, and the results are profound. Their entire approach rests on a very strict two-part clinical architecture. The first platform is called Xenovax.
Xenovax, got it.
Right, and the mechanism here targets senescent cells. These are essentially damaged cells that have stopped dividing, but they refuse to die.
Like zombie cells.
Exactly. They just sit in your tissues, secreting inflammatory proteins. They act like toxic zombies that accelerate systemic aging.
So Xenovax goes in and clears those out.
Yes. And once that's done, they initiate the second platform, which they call stem cell revivify.
That sounds intense. What does that actually do?
It involves extracting your healthy cells, culturing them in a sterile lab, and then flooding your body with a massive wave of fresh stem cells to rebuild the tissues.
Okay, let's unpack this. Because the sequence they are using isn't arbitrary, you know?
Not at all. It's highly intentional.
Right, because if you just skip the first step, like if you just flooded the body with 1,000,000 fresh stem cells while those toxic zombie cells were still hanging around, those new stem cells wouldn't know what to do.
Yeah, they likely end up feeding the dead cells or the inflamed tissue.
Which could trigger rampant cellular mutations or even accelerate cancer, right? So you absolutely must purify the environment before you feed it.
It's mandatory.
It's like remodeling a house. You can't just slap fresh drywall over rotting, moldy wood.
Right, that would be a disaster.
You have to bring in a demolition crew first. You rip out the bad foundation, clear the debris, and only when the frame is completely stripped clean do you bring in the fresh lumber.
And here's the fascinating parallel. Ancient alchemical texts dictate this identical two-step sequence for achieving physiological longevity.
Wait, literally the exact same steps.
The exact same. They labeled it purification, strictly followed by feeding. Modern longevity science is essentially executing a biological protocol that was written 1,000 years ago.
That is wild. So biotech companies are actively trying to bottle this sequence, patent the individual steps, and sell the resulting therapies for a fortune.
Precisely. But if the fundamental architecture is simply demolition followed by fresh lumber, you have to realize that the human body already possesses the internal software to run this program.
Okay, so if biotech uses patented drugs to act as the demolition crew, the natural analog has to be something that forcefully shifts the body's baseline state to, like, eat its own cellular waste.
Exactly. And that points directly to extreme metabolic stress.
Yes.
Specifically, prolonged water fasting.
Which is intense.
It is. When you initiate a deep water fast, you aren't just lowering calories, you are fundamentally altering your cellular environment.
Right, because your insulin levels drop to near zero.
They do. And when that happens, an enzyme called AMPK completely spikes. Understanding AMPK is crucial here.
That stands for AMP activated protein kinase, right?
Yes. Think of AMPK as your body's master cellular energy sensor. When you stop consuming food, your cells run low on ATP, which is their primary energy currency.
So they panic.
Basically, yeah.
Yeah.
AMPK detects this energy crisis and sounds a system-wide alarm. And that precise chemical shift flips the biological switch called autophagy.
Autophagy, which literally translates from Greek as self-eating.
Exactly.
Yeah.
The body realizes no external fuel is coming, so it becomes this incredibly precise internal demolition crew.
It hunts down those damaged senescent zombie cells we talked about.
Right. It breaks down their misfolded proteins and repurposes them for baseline energy. It's an aggressive, highly targeted internal cleanup mechanism.
See, I think this completely reframes how we view fasting for the listener, because people often conflate fasting with starvation,
Not
right?
all the time. But
Yeah.
biologically, they are entirely different states.
Wait, so fasting isn't just starving yourself. Let's clarify that.
No, starvation only occurs when your body has completely exhausted all of its fat stores and cellular garbage. That's when it's forced to indiscriminately break down healthy, vital tissue just to keep the heart beating.
Just for survival.
Right. But autophagy, which is driven by AMPK, is selective. You are forcing the biological engine to burn its own debris.
But once that cellular garbage is broken down, it has to physically leave the body.
It does. You can't just stay in there.
And this connects to the most famous and honestly probably the most profoundly misunderstood goal of ancient alchemy, turning lead into gold.
This is where it gets really fun.
Here's where it gets really interesting, because when you run the biological math on the human body, you find that we literally contain pure gold.
We do. We absorb microscopic amounts of it from the soil through the root systems of the plants and vegetables we eat.
It's mind-blowing. The visual math on this is staggering. The average adult human body contains a total mass of about 0.2 milligrams of pure gold.
Which doesn't sound like a lot.
It doesn't. But if you were to extract every single atom of gold from your blood, your organs, and your deep tissues and purify it, it would form a microscopic solid cube measuring just 0.22 millimeters across.
That is roughly the size of the period at the end of a sentence. It is an incredibly tiny trace amount, but it is unequivocally there.
So while you're fasting and breaking down toxins, you aren't just processing misfolded proteins, your cells are also releasing toxic halogens.
Right, and actual heavy metals that we accumulate from modern environments, like bromide and literal lead.
And these heavy metals get trapped in cellular receptors, creating massive amounts of biological static.
Exactly. And to flush them out, the required chemical catalyst is iodine. Iodine acts as the ultimate chemical flusher in this physiological protocol due to competitive inhibition.
Wait, competitive inhibition. Break that down for us.
Sure. So on the periodic table, halogens compete for the same cellular receptors in the human body. Because iodine is a heavier, highly reactive halogen, introducing it during a fasted state causes it to aggressively bind to those receptors.
Oh, I see. So it actively kicks out the weaker toxic halogens and heavy metals.
Exactly. It displaces things like lead into the bloodstream. And this displacement pushes mutated or abnormal cells into apoptosis.
Apoptosis, which is the biological term for programmed cell death. Right.
Yes. The cell essentially dismantles itself safely, and then the resulting waste, along with the displaced lead and heavy metals, is physically flushed out of your system through the urine volume of the water fast.
Okay, and this brings up a wildly interesting historical parallel from Will Am's breakdown of the ancient texts, because some of these esoteric alchemical rituals actually involve drinking urine.
They did.
Now, stay with me here, because I know that sounds absurd to a modern listener, but the biology backs up why they were doing it.
It makes complete chemical sense.
Right. During a deep fast, as the body is panicking to preserve muscle and tissue, your urine becomes highly concentrated with secreted hormones. You get massive spikes of human growth hormone, DHEA, testosterone, and even circulating stem cells.
And just to be completely clear, modern science isolates and extracts those regenerative elements in sterile labs. Nobody needs to replicate the ancient ingestion methods today.
Yeah, please do not try that at home. But it proves the alchemists were acutely aware of the biological reality of what the fasting body was synthesizing and secreting.
It completely reframes the alchemist's historical mission.
It really does.
When we look at this iodine flush displacing the literal lead and preserving the highly conductive trace minerals like gold, the metaphor becomes so clear. The alchemists were never trying to pee out nanoliter amounts of physical gold to get rich.
Right, because a speck of gold the size of a period wouldn't buy a loaf of bread, even in ancient Rome.
Exactly. The transmutation of lead into gold was never about literal physical wealth. It was a highly coded, esoteric metaphor for clearing the heavy metal static out of the human biological network.
Wow. So when you flush the lead from your cellular receptors, your internal electrical and chemical communication becomes pristine. It acts with the conductivity of pure gold.
You've achieved purification.
So the demolition crew has done its job. The fasting spiked the AMPK, triggering autophagy to break down the zombie cells. The iodine displaced the heavy metals, and the physiological board is officially cleared.
Which means we are finally ready for the feeding step. We have to actually activate the internal stem cells to rebuild the new tissue.
Okay, so how does that happen?
Well, this relies on another very specific biochemical sequence governed by a hormone called IGF-1. That stands for insulin-like growth factor 1.
Got it.
When you are deep into a water fast, your body radically suppresses IGF-1 to conserve energy. And this drop in growth hormone is the exact signal that forces your dormant stem cells to start burning fat for energy.
So it wakes them up.
It wakes them up, but more importantly, it shields them. By downregulating growth, the stem cells enter a highly protected state. They shield themselves from the aggressive, toxic detox process happening all around them.
That's incredible. They just bunker down.
Exactly. They are awake, resilient, and waiting. The actual cellular rejuvenation doesn't happen while you are fasting. It happens the moment you introduce the trigger.
And the trigger is the refeed. But wait, I can't just break a fast with random calories, right? Like if I eat a standard sandwich, am I suddenly regenerating?
No, definitely not. If the stem cells are awake and primed, they're going to need highly specific raw materials to rebuild complex tissues, not just a random spike in blood glucose.
Right, that makes sense.
And even with the right nutrients, the stem cells need direction. If you just flood the system with energy, they have no idea which tissues actually need the fresh lumber. They need a biological map.
A map. Okay, so how do we give them a map?
This is where high-volume mechanical tension becomes critical. We are talking about heavy physical mechanics, doing intense high volumes of push-ups, squats, or loaded exercises.
While you're at the end of a fast.
Yes. When you place muscles under extreme mechanical tension, you are creating micro tears in the muscle fibers. Your immune system responds to these tears by sending macrophages, which release specific signaling proteins called cytokines.
So it's creating inflammation.
A highly precise inflammatory gradient, yes. It acts exactly like a chemical GPS beacon. It tells that massive army of newly energized stem cells exactly where to travel and exactly what tissue needs to be reconstructed.
So the fast and the iodine clear the board. The specific nutrients provide the energy trigger. And the physical exercise provides the map.
You are running the multi-million-dollar biotech protocol natively.
That is just brilliant. But it brings up a huge practical question. If we need very specific raw materials to execute this perfect refeed, where do we get them?
That's the key.
Right, because if humans need a massive, concentrated flush of ocean minerals to survive and capitalize on this detox, we naturally have to look at environments that provide those elements. Which brings us directly to the ancient Japanese coastal diet.
A diet heavily anchored in marine algae, specifically diverse seaweeds. It is chemically flawless for this process.
Because they absorb so much from the ocean.
Seaweeds are marine hyperaccumulators. They absorb the ocean's elements so aggressively that up to 55% of their dry weight consists of pure minerals and trace elements.
Wow.
They are the single most concentrated natural source of iodine on the planet. This creates a perfect, closed biological superloop where the ocean provides both the chemical flesher to displace the heavy metals and the dense building blocks required for the stem cells to reconstruct tissue.
And Williams' research points out that the functional hierarchy of these seaweeds is incredibly precise. You use brown seaweeds for the flush, and then you transition to red seaweeds for the rebuild.
Let's look at the brown seaweeds first.
Yeah, the absolute heavy hitter here is kombu. It has a massive iodine content. We're talking up to 2,500 micrograms of iodine per gram.
Which is huge.
It is. And you don't even need to digest the plant fiber. You just simmer it in water, and it creates this dense broth that delivers an immediate liquid iodine strike to trigger the cellular displacement we talked about earlier.
And alongside it is wakame, which delivers a massive dose of bioavailable magnesium.
What you need after the workout.
Exactly. Your muscles desperately need magnesium to synthesize proteins and recover from the intense mechanical tension you use to map the stem cells.
So once the brown seaweeds handled the demolition and the detox, you transition the biological environment to the red seaweeds to fuel the stem cells.
And the absolute king of this category is Irish sea moss. It acts as the ultimate cellular scaffold.
I've seen Irish sea moss getting super popular lately.
For good reason.
Yeah.
The human body requires 102 specific minerals to function optimally. You need them to facilitate enzymatic reactions, build bone, and synthesize hormones. Iris sea moss contains roughly 92 of those 102 minerals.
Wait, 92 out of 102 required minerals in a single algae. That is absurdly nutrient dense.
It is essentially a biological vault of raw materials.
And alongside the sea moss, you incorporate dulse, right?
Yes, dulse acts as a specialized binder in your gut. As the fasting and iodine squeeze the heavy metals out of your fat cells and into your digestive tract, dulse grabs onto them.
So they don't get reabsorbed.
Exactly. It ensures they don't get reabsorbed into the bloodstream, pulling them safely out of the body.
And finally, you have nori, which is up to 50% protein by dry weight. It provides the direct, bioavailable amino acids your stem cells require to weave new muscle fibers.
It really is the ultimate alchemical meal.
It is. But we do have to look at the physiological reality here. Introducing this much concentrated marine chemistry into a modern human system isn't without risks. Bombing your body with an aggressive kombu broth comes with serious biological warnings from the sources.
Yeah, you cannot approach a heavy iodine flush casually. The human thyroid gland, which regulates your entire metabolism, is highly sensitive.
So what happens if you overdo it?
If you introduce a massive iodine bomb too aggressively, the thyroid protects itself from iodine toxicity by temporarily shutting down hormone synthesis entirely.
Oh, wow.
This autoregulatory phenomenon is known as the Wolff-Chaikoff effect. If you trigger it, your metabolism basically crashes.
So you have to be careful.
You have to titrate this biological transmutation slowly and with deep respect for the glandular system. Furthermore, cellular biology dictates that this isn't some overnight weekend biohack.
Right. The ancient texts explicitly describe this transmutational process as taking a full year to realize its true value.
And modern tissue turnover rates perfectly align with that ancient timeline. You cannot rebuild the human engine in a single 24-hour fast.
Because the tissues take time to physically replace themselves.
Exactly. Fat cells take months to fully shrink, release their stored triglycerides, and dump the environmental toxins they've sequestered. More structurally, your bone matrices, tendons, and deep fascial tissues have incredibly slow metabolic turnover.
We're talking 6 to 12 months.
At least 6 to 12 months to completely remodel their cellular structure. So by systematically cycling this process over a year, the deep fast to trigger AMPK, the marine iodine flush to displace halogens, the mechanical tension to map the cytokines, and the trace mineral refeeds to build the scaffold, you're slowly transmuting your entire biological hardware from the inside out.
Okay, so what does this all mean for you, the listener? Let's zoom out. If you run this ancient alchemical hardware loop flawlessly, or let's say Immortal Bio successfully pushes their patent through the FDA, and we actually double or triple the human lifespan,
Yeah.
what happens when a human being lives to be 300 or 500 years old?
Will Am's societal breakdown forces us to look at the compounding math on this.
Yeah, imagine the individual who currently owns a massive global monopoly, like the Walton family with Walmart, or a major tech CEO. Now imagine that exact same person retains control of those assets for 3 solid centuries.
It's hard to even fathom.
The sheer amount of wealth, real estate, and geopolitical power one single human could accumulate with 300 years of compound interest is honestly terrifying.
It's a thought experiment that fractures the very foundation of modern economics. Our entire societal structure, wealth distribution, inheritance, the turnover of power, is built entirely around a roughly 80-year human lifespan.
Right.
If a ruling class suddenly lived for 4 centuries, the concentration of monopolies would become absolute. The current economic system would simply collapse under the weight of that compounding control.
But looking beyond just the economics, extreme longevity prompts deep critical thinking about human psychology too, and the evolution of identity.
Oh, absolutely. Will Am highlights a conversation he had with an AI about a 500-year lifespan, and the AI's perspective completely sidestepped the economics to focus on neurology.
Which is such an interesting angle.
The AI pointed out a fundamental truth about neuroplasticity. If you live 500 years, the sheer volume of sensory inputs, shifting relationships, and neurological adaptations means you wouldn't be the same person at the end of it.
Not even close.
Every 100 years, your brain would have physically and psychologically rewired itself so many times that you would essentially become a completely different entity.
It totally redefines our entire concept of the rat race. We are culturally programmed to execute a highly specific linear script. Go to school, build a career, retire at 65, and pass away.
But if you have 400 more years on the clock, the concept of retirement dissolves. A single career path becomes meaningless.
It frames biological longevity not just as an extension of time, but as a mandate for continuous, radical personal evolution. I mean, you aren't the exact same person you were 5 years ago. Try to fathom the psychological evolution over 3 centuries.
It completely shatters the timeline we base every major life decision on.
So, pulling all of these threads together for you, modern biotech companies are spending billions to patent and sell you longevity, utilizing a strict two-step architecture of clearing senescent zombie cells and flooding the resulting void with fresh stem cells.
But the biological software to run that exact program is completely native to the human body.
Exactly. By utilizing prolonged fasting to spike AMPK and trigger your internal demolition crew, using iodine to competitively displace toxic heavy metals from your cellular receptors, and applying heavy mechanical tension to direct your stem cells fueled by 92 trace marine minerals. You are essentially performing biological alchemy.
It's an incredible intersection of esoteric history and modern cellular mechanics,
Yeah.
and leaves us with one final thought to mull over.
What's that?
Well, if the ancient alchemical pursuit of turning lead into gold was actually just highly coded cellular biology, what other ancient spiritual or mythological rituals are we dismissing as magic when they might actually just be highly advanced instruction manuals for human hardware?
That is the thought to take with you today. The next time you picture that cloaked alchemist in the candlelit tower, don't picture a wizard fumbling with magic. Picture a pioneer of human biology, mapping out the exact same complex cellular networks that Silicon Valley is trying to patent and sell back to us today. Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive. Keep asking questions, keep challenging your assumptions about what the human machine is truly capable of, and we will see you next time.